You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Haunted Histories with your host Penny G. Morgan, right here on Parasearch Radio.
Good evening, everybody. It's a Wednesday. It's 9 o'clock. That can only mean a new episode of Haunted Histories with yours truly, Penny G. Morgan. I hope everyone's well, and anyone who's got their kids on Easter holiday at the moment, we've got this. We've got this. We're going to get through. We're going to get through this. To quote Daniel Bedingfield. We are. We are. I promise. Just a quick little introduction today before we get into the interview, because I've got some material for you in the interview I'm sure you'll be looking forward to hearing. But if anyone's ever up at sort of 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, do make sure you check out the Paul Ross's Talk Radio show. And if those hours are a bit unsociable for you, go and listen to the Listen Again feature, because if you listen to the show that would have gone out from 1 a.m. on Tuesday morning and you click on around 2:20 a.m, you may recognise the person talking to Mr. Ross. Oh yes, it was me. I was on Paul Ross's show again this week. So much fun. I do love talking to that guy. He's incredibly well researched on his subjects, and he sprung on me a couple of the questions, but I think I batted them back reasonably well. But on that note, shall we get on with the interview then? I think so. And so, on tonight's show, my guests are my favourite Doncastrians. I don't even know if that's a word, but if it isn't, it is now. It's the devilish Dawsons from Simply Ghost Nights. How are you guys?
Hi, Penny.
Hi, Penny. Good evening.
You always know how to say the right things.
Do I? Oh, it's because I mean it, my darling. It's because I mean it.
I bet you've got somebody famous in every town, a favourite friend.
I wouldn't say every town. It's a bit of a struggle when I've got 2 or 3 people I like in the same area. I have to kind of think of different ways to categorise them so they don't think I've got a favourite child, if you know what I mean. But you two are my favourite Doncastrians.
I think we're safe. We're the only Doncaster people.
No, you're not. You're definitely my favourites.
All right, that'll do then.
And we will be coming up to see you at some point when things sort themselves out, because we've got to hit Ripon, haven't we?
We certainly have.
Well, I must admit, I want to do Ripon as a chapter in my follow-up to Haunted History, so I've definitely got to do it, because Bimbrook's going to be going in there as well. So I've got to get some want to get some good stuff on Ripon to include in that one. So how's things been going? Have you got any new venues that you've started to explore?
Don't think we've got any new ones, to be honest with you, because we're just, we're that busy with the ones that we've had all along. We've got such a following, all wanting to do the same locations again and again and again for some reason.
The only newish one we got was last year was Clifton
Park Museum in Rotherham.
And Tapton Hall in Sheffield.
Tapton Hall in Sheffield, yeah. But that's most recent.
So you are still open to new venues if they present themselves?
Oh, definitely, yeah. We're always... We'll never say never. I think because we both lead busy work as well through the week, we both work full-time jobs through the week, so it's more a weekend thing, so we don't have the time to put into it as if we were doing it as a full-time job.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we do still look, but it's hard if you haven't got the time to sit all day scanning locations, phoning locations, emailing locations.
Yeah.
It's hard.
We went out to look at a new one January, February, but it's not come to fruition at the moment, that one.
Okay. It's also the commute to these places some of the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to do sort of... I did Bodmin Jail recently with Richard Easter, but he was researching for his new book, and I was lucky enough to be invited down as one of his guest investigators, and that was a 5 and a bit hour drive for me to get down to. It's an amazing place, and I love that part of the world, but it's hard to balance that with family and work and all your other commitments and get the most out of it, because then you're shattered for the rest of the week, and it is quite difficult, isn't it, to find, as much as you would love to spend the whole time just travelling around to these places and not have to think about a 4 or 5 hour drive. And it's not that driving for 5 hours particularly bothers me. It's I can do it, I don't mind, but it takes so much out of you and out of your day as well.
And a lot of the time when you're just going to check that building out to see if it's suitable, you're driving 4 or 5 hours, probably spending half an hour to an hour there, and driving back home again, and you've lost a day's work. It's not just the day's work, it's you're saving those days for when you do want a holiday. You don't want to be, I wouldn't call it wasting it going looking for a location, but it really is. It's a whole 10-hour journey sometimes to do a half-hour appointment.
But it's the balancing it, isn't it? It's that whole work-life balance, because even though it's, I love going to some of these places when there's nobody else. Well, I can't say I genuinely love going to these places when nobody else is there and I can explore and look around and stuff, but it does still get sometimes a bit work-like, and you do need your downtime, and you do need your you just need to switch off and not having to be answering questions and looking things up, and but it's hard.
That's probably half the thing is, at the moment, I think we've just got ourselves into a comfortable routine. Going to work, coming in, everything's on the website, it runs itself, we answer the questions when we come in. To start looking around for more venues means more work, really.
But that's professionalism, isn't it, that you've got, and it's your experience, because you've been doing it for so long. You're not sort of chasing your tail with things. You've got it set up. It works. It very rarely needs too much intervention, and the returning sort of guests you get are just proof of how well it works.
We're so lucky with our returning guests. We really love them. They really love us. That's how it works.
Yeah, and you've got cracking staff as well. Your staff are, they have me in stitches most of the time. A lot of them.
They are a great bunch. They know we love them as well. So, because Ripon is one of my favourite places, because I've been there during the day anyway, and I'm planning to. We're going up to North Yorkshire hopefully for half-term week, a family holiday, and I've already told. Unfortunately, the dates don't fit with you guys doing an investigation there, but I've told Wayne I want to go to Ripon and because I never got to go to the police museum. When I was there before, so I need to go back so I can explore the police museum. What's been happening at Ripon lately? Any new developments?
Well, we did the vagrants block about 3 weeks ago, and we had a phenomenal 4 vigils there.
They're the cell-like structures, aren't they, that the vagrants would have been put in, and the stones would have been put through one thing, and then they smashed them and put them through the whole back, isn't it?
Yeah, it was like the back end of the building, like the back half. That was where the inmates would have slept, etc. But this part of the building was solely for the vagrants who were just dropping in for one night. So and like you said, it had the yard where they did all the work through the day.
Upstairs was the boardroom, where the governor's room up there, and up in the governor's room, we all heard an incarnate voice say no when we asked the question, and the voice was from like the window area, and we had the table and the guests round by the door area, and no one, it weren't from outside, it was from the room. It was really bizarre, and with plenty of K2 activity there. And Spirit Box, once again, Ripon's one of you get all the foul responses there, which was what we like to hear on Spirit Box, to be honest.
Yeah, well, it was actually that vagrants block bit that I had an experience in during the day. I don't know if you remember when I told you the door wouldn't open, and I had to go all the way back through the museum, like against the one-way system, so to speak, to get one of the assistants say you've not unlocked it, and she comes back and she just turns the handle and it opened straight away. And I had stood there for a good 2 or 3 minutes, pushing it and pulling it and turning the handle and trying to see if the lock was, and I couldn't open the thing. And I mean, I'm no weakling. It's not like I'm not strong enough to open a door. So it's an interesting, definitely an interest. I am looking forward to at some point investigating it with you guys, because it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah.
And as you know, we've got a few guests waiting to meet you as well.
Yes, I saw that. That is so amazing. That put such a huge grin on my face. It kind of made the hours of writing and editing and researching, it makes it so worth it when people say things like that who I don't even know. So it's not like they're saying it because they're a friend.
Yeah, you know that's what I mean? Right. That's right. They bought it off their own head. They didn't know. They didn't know that I knew you. You know, and it was good for me as well. I was like, yeah, I know Penny. She's my best mate.
I've got her phone number. No, that was amazing. That comment did make my day. And anyone listening, if you have bought the book and you don't actually know me and you do see me anytime or know that I'm going to be on an investigation, of course I will sign it for you if that's what you want. Although a friend of mine did say to me the other day, she goes, yeah, I bought it, I've been reading it. And I said, oh, I'll bring it along, I'll sign it. And she went, no, you won't. I went, why? And she went, it's on my Kindle.
Oh.
I was like, yeah, that might be an issue. But as she said, I know where you live. If I want you to sign anything, I'll bring a photo round. So, yeah, I still find it weird when people say, can you sign your book for me? I was like, why? Why? Only me. But yeah, that was amazing. So I'm looking forward to doing that with you guys. So let's go on to what we're going to be talking about. And this is a bit different. Because this is somewhere that you do. How many times have you been to this? This
will be our third return.
And when is it you're going back again?
In November.
It's November. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the place we're talking about is the old chapel at Belper. And this is now, it's a holiday let, isn't it? It's been converted into a holiday let that can accommodate some, like, isn't it about 20 people or something can stay there?
There's about 20 beds for people to sleep over, and you know, we also do a ghost hunt only option, so if they want to come just for the ghost hunt and they don't want to sleep, that's fine.
But so it's got all the mod cons. You're not going to freeze your backside off like you do in most overnight ghost hunts. I'm thinking of some of the places I've been that I've had to stay overnight, and you kind of you don't even take clothes off to go to bed. You put more on.
You climb in a sleeping bag and bunk down for the night.
Yeah,
it's not like that here. No, you get a nice bedroom, beds in there. It's all comfortable. You know, I wouldn't say it's the most modern of places because it's not. It's probably quite dated, but it's clean, it's tidy, and it's comfortable.
And how did you guys discover this place as being a haunted location?
It was quite by accident, actually, this Baptist chapel, because many years ago my family booked a chapel nearby called the Ebenezer Chapel, and they kept calling us every night, you must come down with your equipment. It got to the stage where they were absolutely petrified to go to bed.
Really?
And my family are not into ghost hunting whatsoever. So you know, the thought of being in a haunted location was really freaking them out, but they went in there not realising there was any hauntings going on at all. You know, they just bought it as a holiday let, so they stay in the week, and things were happening every night to the point they were sleeping in pairs or trios because they were that afraid to go to bed. Anyway, we decided we would look into booking it as a possible location. So, and
this was the Ebenezer?
Yeah, this was the Ebenezer. So I would say it was 3 years later before I got round to it, but I did actually look into, you know, messaging the company, would you be interested in allowing us to do this? And yeah, that's fine. So we booked it, and it's been on our website for nearly 6 months when I get an email from a cleaner who works there. And she said, oh, you know, it's a fantastic location. But then I realised when she was talking that I'd booked a different one. I'd booked the Old Baptist Chapel, which is about 2 miles up the road.
Right.
So then I'm calling Stuart and I'm like, oh no, Stu, you're not going to believe it. I think I've booked the wrong chapel. And he's like, well, how many chapels can there be in Belper?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah. So we thought, well, you know, they're both the same age. It looks creepy. There's a graveyard in the garden. We'll just have to roll with it. So we went there and we did the weekend there, and it was one of the most active, crazy weekends we have ever done in all our lives. I'm not joking. We had full apparitions. We had people were seeing things. People were too afraid to go to bed. There was all sorts happening, and went home, couldn't believe it, that we'd booked the wrong chapel, and it I wouldn't say paid off, because that's the wrong thing to say, but you know how easily it is to become across a location quite by accident like that. So the following year we booked that one again, and we booked the Ebenezer Chapel. Right.
And to be fair, the internal photos were no difference. They're all decorated the same, near enough.
That's where I went wrong, you see. I think because they're both owned by the same person, and the interior is quite the same. So I thought, well, it looks exactly like it. It must be it.
And the history is practically the same bar for 30 years, where the Old Baptist is, I think, about 30 to 40 years older than the Ebenezer. But the history is just, well, you know, that area with Belper being with the mills and everything else, and all Strutt's business there.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Belper as an area rather than because one of the first things you said is how many chapels could there be? Well, that's why I said that's a good question, because one of the things I was looking at was when I started Googling it, I thought exactly the same thing. How many chapels could there be? And so I put in Old Chapel Belper. The amount of different pictures, and I'm like, that's not the same as that one, and that's different to that. How what? And so I thought, well, let's look at how many people lived there. And in 1831, the census said there was 7,890 residents. I think it was about 4,500 properties, residential properties, but around 7,890 residents. And then in 2011, it was 21,823. So a good size, sort of large, well, small town, but not huge. Yet when you look at how many... I mean, even now, I looked up on the, it was like on the Belper Tourism website kind of thing, and it said the amount of, there's 2 Methodist churches, 2 Anglican churches, a Baptist church, a current Baptist church, a Spiritualist church, a Roman Catholic church, a Congregational church, and a Unitarian church. That's an awful lot of churches, considering the fact that a lot of sort of Church of England churches are struggling to get people through the doors these days, which is a fact. We know that. It's amazing that there's all these different sort of religions that have all got functioning churches in quite a small area. And the other thing that I found quite amazing was the lack of what I'd call traditional English churches. So they are predominantly sort of not out there, that's the wrong thing to call, like Methodist or Baptist or whatever, but they're not the common churches you would normally get in an area. And so your question of how many chapels could there be, there's quite a few, and considering a lot of these would have had, I mean, we'd say the Baptist Chapel, that's what this one we're looking at, the Old Baptist Chapel, that was the original Baptist Chapel that from what I can make out, it started being sort of planned and designed in about 1817. It was opened to the public, for want of a better term, in 1819, and I found newspaper reports celebrating the first anniversary in March of 1820. So, you know, and then they built a bigger one, bigger and better, because they were filling the door. They were having to shut the doors during services because it was so full, which I find quite unusual for the 1800s. That a quite unusual religion, i.e., not your conventional religion. But then again, you mentioned Strutt, Jedediah Strutt. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, Jedediah Strutt was an industrialist. He kind of made his money during the Industrial Revolution, and he's most famous for devising a machine that made something called the Derby rib. He was an engineer by trade, and basically it was a kind of loom that developed this I think it was for stockings or something, not as in kinky suspender type stockings, but the kind of thick wool stockings that they used back then. And it had a rib in it, and he devised, him and another chap whose name I've forgotten, devised this machine that created this type of material that made this Derby rib, which apparently still gets made now. They still make Derby rib sort of socks and tights and things now. But he was very God-fearing, and he actually gave the money. I think he gave the land and an awful lot of the money to build the first Unitarian church, if I remember rightly. So it doesn't surprise me. It's got a lot of chapels and churches, but it does, on the other hand, because of the amount. There's not that many people there. So the fact that the Ebenezer looks like the Old Baptist Chapel, that doesn't surprise me, because I'm sure there's quite a few others that were coming up on my search when I put Belper Old Chapel. There's quite a few that were all converted into some kind of amazing holiday let.
I
I'm
think it
digressing a bit now, but it was an interesting sort of. I was having to be very careful when I was looking at facts which chapel they related to, because they were all coming through as the Old Chapel Belper.
Yeah, it is hard deciphering when you're looking at history, because, like you said, there's so many, and none of them actually give you an address. So they're just a name. No. You're just like, well, which one's that and which one's that? You know. And when I was looking, because I know the one that we use, the Baptist Chapel, there's actually graves in the garden. You know, people would go out for a smoke and they'd be like, it's quite surreal that they're standing in this graveyard smoking a fag, reading the gravestones, you know. And we were like, wonder if we could find some, you know, history about who's buried in the graveyard. And we did actually come across a website what told us everyone who was buried in the graveyard.
I found that website today, actually.
Yeah. So some fascinating stories there as well. Lots of there wasn't that many. I think there's about 30 people buried there. But
it's not a massive graveyard, is it?
Yeah, all different stories about what happened to them, how old they were, etc.
Yeah. See, I love a graveyard, because I think it tells so many stories. Like you say, when you're looking at, and you can sort of put families together, and you look at sort of. I think there was a church. It was in Norfolk, and my dad and I had gone there because he wanted to show me a war memorial that was in the church, or something. It was something to do with World War II. And I was quite surprised the lack of deaths during, say, the Second World War that were like the gravestones, and it was things like that. And we saw a whole sort of proliferation of deaths around certain times. And when I looked up the time, it was, say, when Spanish flu had hit and all that kind of thing. And it really does, especially a village one that would have been quite a shut off place in its day. It really can tell a lot of stories, can't it? And I don't find them scary. I know a lot of people think graveyards, oh, there's going to be ghosts and everything. Yeah, I find them quite relaxing.
I do as well. Whenever I'm stressed, or God forbid, we very rarely do it, but if we have an argument, I tend to just walk down to the graveyard, which is a 2-minute walk, and I just sit in there because it's peaceful. Yeah,
I know, I understand that. I do. I've been known to do things like. Unfortunately, I haven't got a graveyard near where I live at the moment, but whenever we go away somewhere and we'll come up against a really nice church, and my husband will be like, you want to go walk about, don't you? Yep. And I'll get out and I'll just go walk about the graveyard, because it just tells. It's not in a voyeuristic way, and it's a very I am very respectful, but I just find it. I chat to them. I chat to the gravestones.
You also come away like thinking, well, you know, life's not that bad. You're not as bad as a lot of them in there, are you?
But I genuinely chat to them. Like, their name will be on the stone, and I'll chat to them. And I think there was one that her daughter had died at like 3 years old or something, and they were in the same gravestone. So I was chatting to her, saying how awful it must have been to lose your daughter at 3, and all that kind of. And it was. I was like, my husband knew me very well at that time, and he was looking at me like I was nuts. I was like, I'm just being nice. I'm just talking to them. I'm just. Sounds good.
It's a woman thing. It's a woman thing.
It probably is a woman. Stuart, do you not do stuff like that?
Only when I've had an argument, with Rosey, and I've gone for a walk.
But do you talk to the gravestones?
No, I don't talk to them now.
No?
I haven't walked down. I mean, the cemetery near us is actually Arthur Wharton's buried there, which is one of the first black footballers.
Right.
So his headstone's there.
No, I just find it very relaxing. And say I am one of those people who could quite happily go and sit in a graveyard with a book and just sit there and read for a couple of hours. I don't find them intimidating or scary or that's quite. So we mentioned Jedediah Strutt, and we were talking a bit off air about the sort of stuff that he provided for his workers, and you were both saying you were quite surprised at how much he did actually gift to Belper.
Yeah, and it's you go to Belper now, his name's everywhere. Buildings, donated by him, streets named by him, streets named, for him.
Yeah.
It's everywhere you go, even the town
schools,
the town hall,
big community hall named after him.
Honestly, is so dominant throughout that town. It'll never be forgotten, that's for sure.
But I think that's similar of a lot of the big industrialists from the 1800s, though, isn't it? Because if you go to places like Middlesbrough, you get... for life, I didn't look this up, I'm ad-libbing now, but there was a chap who did a lot of the work, that built a lot of the factories in Middlesbrough. He's still got a social club named after him, even though he's been, dead and buried for 200 years. And you go to places like Saltaire, and you'll see the guy who ran there's name mentioned everywhere. And wasn't it a similar industrialist who set up just before Strutt, but he set up in Nottingham, somebody Arkwright. His name is quite synonymous as well.
Yeah, Richard Arkwright. It was a...
There's a lot.
I think he did a lot of work with Strutt, didn't he, as well?
He did. They did work together quite a lot. He was kind of like 2 or 3 years ahead of Strutt, I think, from sort of planning the factory and the infrastructure and all of that kind of thing. But you go anywhere like that, and there's a lot of the names are synonymous with that town, which is kind of a good thing, I think, because they did a lot of them, the good industrialists, and I put Strutt in that thing.
Yeah,
they did provide a lot. I mean, that show we did on Old Concept on the steelworks. When you think it was the steelworks that built the hospital, they built the school, they built the shops, they built the houses, they built the and whether whatever your feelings are about the hours that these people used to have to do and the risks that they would undertake by working there, that was just norm for that time. But it was also not normal for them to have decent schools to send their kids to and a hospital to take the family to, because it was all funded by the employer. Which I think is quite good that infrastructure was created, and so these people, whilst the work they did wasn't fun. I was reading up that at the mills they would do 12-hour days. So they would do 6 a.m. till 12. Then they would have lunch between 12 and 1, and then they would do another 6 hours from 1 till 7.
Yeah,
which is a long old day.
Is that the one in Belper as well? Yeah,
that was the Belper one I was looking at, because he had a couple of mills in Belper, but I know in January of 1803 one of his mills burnt down, North Mill, and it was at like 3 o'clock in the morning, so I couldn't find reports of anyone got injured, but I know it did burn down, and it was had to be totally rebuilt. So it was I think, say 3 o'clock in the morning, though some mills, some of them, especially ones in like Lancashire and stuff, the cotton mills, they would be working 24 hours a day. The only day they got off was on a Sunday, and that was to go to church. So it was a hard life. But I suppose at least if you know that you've got that infrastructure and you've got lots of I suppose religious ways to fulfill your religious obligations as well, without him judging. He does sound like quite a nice guy. Something that I did find that I thought was quite funny was that if you could get given forfeits as one of his members of staff for certain things, if you were caught like being drunk at work, or you took a day off work when you weren't allowed to. And there was 2 that really made me laugh that you could get fined for doing, and these are funny. I genuinely laughed when I read these. They had to find some staff, for rubbing their faces with blood and then going into town to scare people. That had become an offence. And so did terrifying S. Pearson with her ugly face. Someone got fined for scaring someone because they were so ugly. It's not very nice, but it's like how can you make that an offence that you get fined and taken before the court for scaring someone because you're not very good looking? But then again, back then they would put a woman in an asylum because she wanted to read too much. So I suppose I shouldn't really be that surprised. But those ones, but yeah, they had to create a crime as being rubbing blood on your face and going into town and scaring people. I just found
it's
it
a strict world we live.
I found it quite funny, but then I'm glad I've got a weird sense of humour. So you're saying that from the get-go at the Old Baptist Chapel in Belper, stuff was happening.
Yeah. It was.
Stuff was happening. Yeah. What sort of things were happening?
Well, on that first night, obviously we were a bit concerned when we first started, thinking we don't even know if this place is haunted. We were just crossing our fingers. But yeah, little things were happening, and then we had a couple had turned up for the event only. They weren't going to stay the night, and he came in. I'm not scared of ghosts, one of them. Went and sat at the top of this staircase near the kitchen, while the rest of the group stayed down in the living room area, but they could look up to the top of the stairs, if you know what I mean.
Because it's kind of got a gallery around the top, isn't it? It's like a gallery type thing, yeah.
So he was sitting at the top of the gallery, and they were sitting downstairs at the bottom of the gallery, and they were calling out, "Come on, try and do something, make a noise up there." And apparently there was one huge bang from the kitchen area, and this guy ran down them stairs like a bat out of...
It nearly knocked his girlfriend downstairs to get out of the way.
Yeah.
We'd not had the bang previously and had it since, and we said, come on, do something special. Let's hear a bang. And I'm not joking, Penny, it was really loud, and the guy ran. He ran all the way downstairs, and he was 6'4", and his girlfriend was probably 5'4", 5'6", and he nearly knocked her downstairs where he ran.
But then another couple of things that happened, Penny, was when we were doing our break, we went up into the kitchen to turn the kettle on, and as they turned the kettle on, all the lights went out. Was it just in the kitchen, or was it the whole building? I think the lights went out anyway, so we had to
Did you check the fuse box?
Yeah, this is what we had to do. We had to run back downstairs, check the fuse box, which is in one of the bedrooms on that middle floor, the main gallery. Yeah. Went in there, turned the fuse back on. We're thinking the kettle must have fused it.
Yeah.
Went back up, turned the kettle on. It started boiling. Then all the lights went out again. So we went down, put the fuse back on. Fair enough. Then we went into part 2 of the night, and everything was fine after that. No problems at all with the lights for the rest of the night. The next night, there were just 4 of us sitting eating tea up in the dining room, which is up on the top gallery again. We're literally all sat at the table when all the lights went out, just in the dining room where we were sat, and the kitchen.
Right.
And we were like, well, the night before, it had been all the lights throughout the whole gallery, but this time it was just the rooms where we were sitting. And not one of us had turned anything on or anything off. So we went back down, put the fuse, found out which fuse it was, put that fuse back on again, and not one problem after that for the rest of the weekend with the lights. So it just seemed like at certain times they were messing with our heads with the lights. Do you know what I mean? Probably it could be coincidental, I don't know. You're always thinking these things. It seems strange that we'd been using this room for 2 days and nothing, and on this 3rd day the lights went out just in this room.
Especially if you're not plugged anything in that was going into that particular fuse, it would
be...
Yeah,
that's it. We were literally just sitting eating our dinner around the table. But on the second night, the pictures that you see, there's the huge gallery. Well, there's another floor below that with another big lounge, and off this there's 4 bedrooms on each. There's a bedroom on each corner. Now, in this lounge, there's it's hard to explain, but there's like a window into each bedroom, but it's head height window. It's not like you can't look in and see them in bed or anything. It's only if they stood up you can see the heads. That window. And we were all just sat in this living room at the end of the night talking about the event, what had happened, and everybody who was sat round one end of the room facing towards the door actually witnessed a shadow come through the door, the main front door, walk through the porchway, because the doors were all wide open, we could see it, came through the doorway, through the porchway, walked halfway around this room. On the wall you could see the shadow walk all the way around this room and then just disappear behind Stuart, just disappeared. we don't know where it went, but it just disappeared. And we were all like, oh my God, did you see that? We'd all seen it.
And I thought everyone was listening to what I was saying. It was unbelievable.
Oh, we're always listening to you, Stu. We're always listening to you intently.
Oh, pretending.
So how long had you been staying there for when the shadow made it? How long had you been there for when the shadow made an appearance?
This was our second night. Right. This was about 2:00 in the morning, straight after the event, and we were just sat downstairs, and all the lights were on, and it's hard to explain, but because this living room's surrounded by bedrooms, you've got no windows, it's all internal. Do you know what I mean? There's no way this shadow could have been caused by anything. There was no traffic lights, nothing. And to explain where this chapel is, when you go down Belper High Street, there's the Rifleman's Arms, and it's like an alleyway up the side of the Rifleman's Arms. You walk way down that alleyway, and at the end of that alleyway is a gate. You go through that gate, and that's when you're into the graveyard for the chapel. Right. So there's absolutely no traffic.
There's no light contamination.
No traffic lighting or anything, no noise, nothing. We cannot explain what that shadow was that came through.
There's no adjoining walls to any other properties? It's a detached property?
It's surrounded by an 8-foot wall.
Okay.
And there was another bizarre occurrence when we were there. It was the second time we'd gone. It was on the Saturday. And me and Julie had a group in the same room, believe it or not. And when Rosey mentioned about the windows, and we were facing this window, and I happened to say, that room looks like it's got smoke in it. It really went really smoky, and we could smell smoke. And Julie said she saw someone with a blackened face. So we asked a few questions, and you know, in your room, and the atmosphere totally changes.
Yeah,
it was really weird. It was a real weird sensation in that room. Some of the guests were getting a bit on edge. So we said, look, we're getting the tap in. And we said we burnt, because I was thinking, you know, like it might have been burnt in the fire. We said we are burnt in the fire, and we got tapping for yes. So I made a decision, we'll use a spirit box. And Julie said she thought she got the name George, and I got that thinking like Williams, so like George Williams. And we asked on the spirit box. This were all confirmed through yes, and then it kind of went really surreal. So every question we asked through the spirit box, we got an answer corresponding. Were you George Williams? Yes. Were you burnt in a fire? Yes. Were the children scared of you and mimicked you in the street? Yes. So we were really sorry for that. We've been pretty gracious about it. So our times where we're not here to upset you and harm you. And there were a few more questions fired at him, and then we said we appreciate it took a lot for you to come forward and communicate with us. And he said yes, and then we said, is there anything you want to say to us before we go? Because we're like trying to wrap it up for a quick cup of tea then, because it was one of them really edgy vigils. And I said, was there anything you'd like to say to us before we go? And on my kid's life, Penny, we heard, thank you.
Oh.
And we all went, oh, thank you. And as I went to turn the spirit box, I said, look, George, we're going for a cup of tea now. We're back later on. And as I went to turn the spirit box off, we got, thank you again. And honestly, I wish I'd recorded it. And me and Julie still talk about it. And then as soon as I turned the spirit box off, the atmosphere changed. It went from like being all manic as such, and just like calming. And the girls in the group were all, I mean, you know yourself, you can't manipulate it.
It's also hard to explain to someone that atmosphere, because they think, you're only feeling it because you're in a haunted building and you're thinking it. But when you're quite experienced, you don't tend to get as hysterical. Do you get what I mean? You tend to be more sort of, oh well, whatever happens, I've seen it, I've done it, I've got no reason. I don't get scared, and it's when I start to feel that kind of.
If you imagine the guests are all edgy, what's going to happen next? But we, no, this is what we're here for. We'll call out, try to response on the spirit box, and it was just amazing, And then, like I said, the atmosphere changed. We had a coffee, and even Julie, she was saying how calm it felt. It felt really calm, and it was just, surreal, really, to be honest. And you had one where you woke up, didn't you, as well?
Yeah, I'd been the night when we all saw that shadow come in through the doorway and round the room. We'd all gone to bed, and me and Julie were sharing a twin room. Julie's bed was kind of down the middle of the room, and mine was next to the wall.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to face the wall, because it had really shook me up, this shadow that we'd seen. You know, because we'd all seen it. We knew clearly we'd seen it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to face the wall. I'm frightened of what I might see if I open my eyes. So I went to sleep. And you know what? I bet I was asleep no more than 45 minutes. And for some reason, I woke up. And as I woke up, it's hard to explain, but there was a firelight, you know, like an emergency light.
Yeah.
At the other side of Julie. So it lit the wall up, kind of.
Yeah.
You know, when you wake up, the wall's lit up from this firelight. And I could see a shadow of a man just floating down this wall with a hat on. I've always explained it a bit like, you know, when you watch Little House on the Prairie, how you'd imagine the preacher dressed in them days. That's what I saw, something like that. And I shouted, you know, when you wake up, and I'm like, Julie. And she's like, yes, what's the matter? I'm like, are you out of bed? And she's like, no. And I kid you not, it freaked me out. I was so frightened, I refused to go back in that bedroom. And for the rest of that weekend and the following time we went back again, we refused to go back in that bedroom. And that's the bedroom where Stuart had this conversation with this.
Well, we saw the smoke, and the conversation was in the hub of the room.
Yeah.
But also we tried to replicate the shadow.
Yeah.
And again, there's no exterior light coming in. There's just the green light from the emergency lighting. And I'm 5'10", and it weren't my shadow. And then Jez was 6'2", 6'1", and it was
about the height of Jez. And to get it where it was walking, where I saw it on the wall, it would have had to have been somebody walking right between mine and Julie's beds that night.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It was really
just trying to replicate.
When we were trying to recreate what I saw, you know, it would have been somebody walking right between the two beds.
And when Rosey mentioned the lights going off, at the end of the first night, I think it was the second time we were there, everyone's having a cup of tea and, you know, things like that. Eventually everyone's settling down, and there's some of us talking where the big fire is, just chin wagging. All of a sudden, lights goes off in this room. There's 4 women, and that one bloke, that Kevin, Trevor were called, and they went, Trevor, stop messing about with fuse box. And he says, I'm not. So I were upstairs taking cups up to wash. The lights went off again just in this room, and he could hear the girls shouting at him. So I came down. I thought, you know, there's going to be pandemonium in a bit.
Yeah.
And turn it off. Went into the room and I says, Trevor, you turn the fuse box off? And he went, no, I'm honestly not touching it. And we had a look, and the fuse was still up in the up position, weren't it? Remember? And for some reason, the light were going off in that room, the electric, although the fuse was still the same, because the girls had blamed him, and he was like, I'm not, honestly, I haven't touched it. So whether or not there's I don't know. We're just bizarre.
That is bizarre, isn't it? So you were saying, Rosey, about the location.
Honestly, it's one of those locations that's so bizarre and freaky every time we go, but we still can't wait to get back again.
Yeah.
But is it bizarre in a kind of an intimidating way, or is it just a bizarre in a I didn't expect that to happen?
It's both. The freaky kind of way is definitely on the ground floor for me. I still to this day refuse to go into one of those rooms on my own. I will not go in there at all, and neither will some of the rest of the team either. I mean, we're not scaredy cats by a long shot, but do you know how I just can't explain the feeling. It's like the hair stands on the back of your neck when you go in there on your own. But it could be all psychological because of all the experiences we've had there. But yeah, it's the ground floor. I will not go in there on my own, but at the same time, I'm crazily looking forward to it when the night comes and we're going down with a group.
Yeah,
it's like exciting because you think, I know what that room's capable of, and we might show these 10 people, you know, something they've never seen before. You just don't know what's going to happen.
So have you managed to find any of the plans of what it looked like before it was converted?
We did, didn't we, on an obscure website?
Yeah, we did. It was like one big chapel room with a what do they call it? A gallery, around the top.
Right.
It was like that originally, but I don't know what was on the ground floor, because that seemed like an original floor to me. But I've seen the actual main chapel side bit,
where
that was one
where the
big
pews
room.
were and everything.
Yeah.
But so obscure, Penny. It was, I thought we would find it again.
Because I was just wondering what, the area that you said is that it seems to be the hottest for action, so to speak, like where you saw the tall man with what that would have been. Was that part of the original pew where the pews were, or could it have been some kind of dressing area?
Yeah, we thought it where the pews were, to be honest.
Yeah, because it was the ground floor, and it was leading on to, I don't know if it was always the door, the emergency door out, but that's where the emergency door out was as well, in that area. So, yeah, it's quite possible that was originally part of, the main floor of the chapel.
Because the building is square, but how it is inside, with the internal walls all being erected now, it's in almost like in a 50-pence shape. Some of the rooms aren't there?
Yeah, the ground floor seems to have been, like you said, like a 50-pence shape and a bedroom off each edge. So it's quite. You've
got like a central hub, and then different rooms filtering off.
Yeah, like a 50-pence shaped lounge, and then bedrooms off each edge. So but that building has also been many years a Sunday school as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how true it is, but there was a lot of stories about children being abused as such, but that's not something we go. I would never take any of these sort of stories serious about, such as that, because. It's religion. People always come up with this kind of stuff in religion.
I think as soon as you mention a school, there's always a twist, so I wouldn't read anything to it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't find any, when I was going through all the newspapers and everything to do with Belper, the only stuff I found, really, to do with the Baptist side at Belper, and that isn't meant to sound as rude as it does, really, as sort of like Baptist. I put in searches like Baptist Church, Belper, various things. It did. There was a few bits about when the original church was opened, the old chapel, when it was first opened in 1819. But a lot of it was to do with more the new one being built and the fundraising they did for nearly 20 years to build the new one, because they just couldn't fit the congregation into the old one anymore. But then there's what's strange is there's kind of a real gap in finding out what happened to the old one before it was converted and sold and converted. There's a real sort of lack of information for about 50-60 years online and on some newspaper reports and websites and stuff as to what happened to it.
I think that it was a Sunday school, because it was a Sunday school for many years.
Yeah. I know it was still owned by the new church that still stands.
Yeah. And the new church is actually right opposite. When you come out of the alleyway from the Rifleman's Arms, it's right across the road, right opposite. Yeah. So it could have been that the children got sent over to that one and the adults to the big one.
So it was almost used like a church hall almost for the children, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it was very strange. There was a real lack of anything from about 1890 to about 1960 odd about the building. It just seemed to sort of disappear into sort of nothing. I mean, I'm sure if I went up to Derbyshire and went to the records office, and I could find some original documents, but they're just not online. And they would say I couldn't find any newspaper articles. They just all talked about the new church. And but I did find a couple of murders that happened in Belper, and they happened quite close together as well in the 1800s. And the link to the chapel was they happened on something called Chapel. I think it was Chapel Lane in Belper that they happened on. Now, knowing the amount of chapels there were in Belper, that could be anywhere. One of them was a shooting, and the other one was a stabbing, both within sort of, well, very close together. I think if I remember rightly, they were like 1840 or 1850. So when the old chapel was still functioning. But one of them, it was he'd killed someone who was the old occupation of Belper before Stuart moved in, and that was a nail maker, because that's what that area was renowned for, wasn't it? Before the Industrial Revolution, it was making nails, which is quite quite interesting, really. But I just wonder with the chapel if I wonder if it's if you like to say it is one of the pastors or whatever that they were called. They weren't called priests, are they? With Baptists,
I think they are pastors.
They are pastors, aren't they? Or is it someone who was buried outside, or is it just someone who used to frequent there and feels it's their chapel? And what are people doing there?
Mentioned the mill that burnt down, and I'm sure that night that he did say that he was buried in the graveyard. So I wonder if he was.
Yeah, might be.
Oh, George.
Williams. I'm sure it was George Williams, the name we got, and it was confirmed the spirit box. But the only problem with that is most of the gravestones you can't read, can you? There's only a few you can read.
Well, if he died, I mean, the fire. That fire of the North Mill, I couldn't find reports of anyone died in the fire. No.
Yeah, and that tallies with what we were getting when I said, did the children mimic you? You know, so we were thinking he's got facially scarred or burn wounds and survived after the fire or after a fire somewhere. Yeah. And then, obviously...
So he didn't die in the fire, but he might have been burned in the fire.
Yeah, or burned in a fire. Yeah. You know, maybe a house fire, maybe the fire at Strutt's Mill.
I think it's house fires back in those days. I mean, they weren't uncommon because everyone had open fires and everything else. And if it was part of the old nail baking community, the sort of heat that they would have dealt with, and without the sort of health and safety that we would expect now. But you should have made him a cup of tea. You should have taken a cup of tea to him.
I think we offered. Like I say, as soon as we got the confirmation that he'd been burnt in a fire, and in that respect, we appreciate everything he was saying to us. Again, via the spirit box, the atmosphere changed, and we said we're going for a cup of tea if you'd like to join us afterwards. That kind of stuff.
They even asked him if he was the one who'd shown himself. When I woke up in the night and saw that shadow walk along the wall, they asked him if he was the one who was seen that night, and he told them he was. And
again, all via the spirit box. It was just amazing, really, to be honest.
Well, then it could have been him then. He could have been wearing a hat to try and cover his face.
Yeah.
Have you tried looking on sort of birth records and seeing if you could find a George Williams who would have been in Belper around that time?
We haven't actually.
No.
I will have a look. I will have a look for you and let you know what I find.
Yeah.
See if I can find a George Williams.
I imagine though there'll be a George or there'll be a Williams, because it was quite a common name. But hopefully, there might be someone comes up with that name at that time.
If he was mill generation, it should be recorded. If he was living, 1800s onwards. If he predated that, possibly not. Because those are the kind of records you then start having to look at parish records, and many parish records have been destroyed or burnt, or ironically. But if he was 1800s onwards when they did start formally recording in a central database, I might be able to find him. But I'll have a look. And see what I can find.
Really?
So when you go to the chapel, Stu, obviously with your mediumistic side, have you sort of sensed anyone on that basis, or did they tend to prefer to use the technical stuff?
I've sensed quite a few. Wow. I'm trying to think, the first night we went, I sensed the lady there. We've had sensed children there, which we presume is from the Sunday school. Never let us down a lot. And like I say, with the George Williams scenario, with that was all confirmed, the mediumistic, but confirmed for the guests via the spirit box. I'm just trying to think what else we've...
Another strange thing happened, there's it's hard to explain, but under the kitchen gallery there's a sauna, a wooden sauna.
Okay.
Just for a bit of fun, some of the girls like, should we all go and sit in the sauna and call out? I don't know why. They probably thought because it's pitch black it makes it more creepy.
This being guests.
Yeah,
not guests,
So they went and sat in the sauna, and they were screaming. They were claiming people were touching them, which we're thinking then, maybe they're touching each other, really, for a joke. Then it would whittle down to just two of them in there. And they come out screaming, said they were just sat there calling out, and one of the pieces of charcoal, what you pour water onto, just flew at them out of the charcoal storage.
Oh, blimey.
So yeah, that was crazy piece of activity.
See, I don't like saunas. I have this fear of it being all hot and someone locking me in there. You know, that kind of thing. I don't like them. It did
a little bit creepy when you were in there, I'll be honest with you. As soon as you shut that door, it was just like, it was so dark. It was
I'll tell you one other thing happened, Penny, and this was kind of weird. It was the Monday morning, we were just getting ready to go, and we'd gone all the way around the building as you do to make sure it left no equipment, because we get it for Friday, Saturday nights for investigation, and Sunday we stop over and have a bit of a day itself, don't we, mate?
Cleaning the house.
Cleaning the house up, basically. And we've got the bags of equipment, we've took tables to the car, we're all set ready to go. We get in, there's only one more bag to take, and we said, as we always do, is like to do that little thank you that we're leaving, appreciate its activity. And in the sauna, we had a noise, and it was one of his dolls. You know the dolls that we have very similar to a K2.
The Polly doll.
Yeah, the devil dolls.
Yeah, somebody had left it in the sauna, and it was like, "Hey, I'm here. Don't leave me here." And then it was, you can remember that doll going off.
Saying it was either that, the doll saying, "Don't leave me here," or it was the spirit saying, "Don't leave that bloody thing here."
Yeah.
I would say it's probably the spirit, because I hate those. Right, those things are. Not a lot scares me, but when one of those in pitch black, suddenly its eyes light up at you, and it does look like it would scare Chucky. Do you know what I mean?
What's the most strange thing is we'd been sat there all morning, had a cup of tea, had some breakfast, not one single sound.
No, we've been sat there.
As soon as we said we're off now.
It had been left there since Saturday night, Sunday morning.
Yeah.
We always say to guests, if you returned all the equipment, like I say, we'd scooted round the building, not looked in the sauna, because you didn't expect anything to be left in sauna. And as we're just about to go, I bet we probably would have left 2 minutes after that, and they'd all lined up, and it was like, A, is it a coincidence, or B, is it like, hey, get that thing out of here? Do you know what I mean? It's like,
I think it was the latter, because I can't stand those things.
Yeah, for it to be there 2 hours, and it just for it to alarm out as we're like leaving, is unbelievable, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, even I think it was when we were at Binbrook and we were using the Boo Bear in like that main, like the main hall where the rec, like where the rec area is and everything else. And I know that my husband had never seen one of those Boo Bears in operation. I mean, I've seen them working. I don't like them. I find them quite I do find them quite creepy, I must admit. Especially when it starts going, that tickles, and you're like, oh, that is really wrong. And even he was like, does that mean something's touching it? Yeah, that means something's touching it. And he's like, really? Yeah, I kind of, those voices and stuff is like, no, I don't. It's a bit like the Ovilus voice that you get, that sounds, it almost sounds satanic, doesn't it, sometimes, the way it's speaking. And I have all those things on mute, I must admit. I was like, no, I'll read what comes up, thanks. But that would make me jump, actually. That one of those dolls going off when I thought everyone had left, that probably would make me sort of...
Well, like I said, not gone off in the... Like I say, the Saturday night, Sunday morning had been left, an all day Sunday.
Yeah.
And we were leaving Monday morning about 9 o'clock, ready to go. And we were just... Last bag to go downstairs, I think it was a bag of cups.
Don't forget your crazy doll.
Yeah, get that out of here.
Yeah. I think the thing is, what's interesting is these kind of residential, I call them a ghost hunt for whatever better term, they do seem to be gaining in popularity, not just an overnighter, like you can get at, say, Kelvin and Hatch, where you start at 7, 8, whatever, and you stay until 8 in the morning, but like 2 or 3 days in a place. And it really does, I think it makes a difference, because I know that when I've stayed in I stayed in a haunted, well, even the husband agrees it was haunted, holiday cottage in France last year. It took a couple of days before things started really happening, but when they started, boy, did they start. So it's almost like you do have to have been there for a few days.
Yeah.
A, for the energy to build, B, for the whatever it is there to start to go, they're not leaving, okay, I'm coming out to play.
Yeah.
But I do think they're gaining in popularity, and it is something I think that anyone who's interested in the ghost hunting, paranormal side, whatever you want to call it, it's a good thing to have a go at try one of these 2 or 3 day residential
stays
just to get a feel.
We've just done Wasdale in Westwater, and you come away absolutely totally chilled. You've had a weekend of doing nothing but ghost hunting and just chilling. That's all it's involving. There's no stress, no work, and the good thing about Westwater is there's no telephone, no internet, nothing.
Oh, there's internet now, remember. There's internet now, yeah.
But yeah, it was absolutely fantastic weekend. Everybody who went, they all said, it kind of doubles up as like a mini break.
Yeah.
So it does. It makes you feel like you've got a little bit more for your money when you're not just everything's rushing around you. It's all the hype to getting there. You get there, welcome meeting, straight into ghost hunting, and the night's over before you know it. Whereas when you're doing a weekend, you do get time to take it all in and chill a bit, and
as you know, relaxing when you're ghost hunting, actually just relaxing and doing sweet FA is when stuff really starts to happen. How often is it you'll be sitting down having a chat with your colleagues or your friends that you've made, cracking a joke about something, and next thing you know, something's moving, something's banging, voices are talking to you on your digital recorders. So by staying somewhere, and actually, because you can't stay on full alert for 72 hours, it's well, you probably could, but you'd be exhausted. You do have the downtime, you do have the let's go and make a cup of coffee or whatever, and next thing you know, like you say, your lights are going off, or the kettle's turning itself off, or cups are moving, and I think that's a really interesting way to see all the different sides of what investigating can hold.
And it's like when you put a location, it can be a little bit like a needle in a haystack looking for a ghost. It might be the ghost that appears once every 4 years. You're there for one night only. At least if you're there for a weekend, you've got a little bit more of a chance of seeing it.
Yeah, awesome. So you're saying the next time you're going back there is November. Are there tickets still available?
There are still a few available, more for the ghost hunt only, but there is still a couple of beds left if someone wants to sleep over too.
So how do they go about contacting you, my love?
They simply go on www.simplyghostnights.co.uk
and book up.
And book,
And can they pay a deposit and then sort of pay more?
Yep. Sorry, I'm talking over you, aren't I?
That's all right. It's all right. My Tom's just come down. The 5-year-old's just come down, and he's singing to himself. So I was trying to do a shh at him whilst I'm talking to you.
Me and Rosey thought you were an incarnate voice there.
No, it's definitely a 5-year-old. I'm trying to get his brother's attention to sort of ask him to be quiet for me.
So yes, we do.
He's just told us he's nearly 6. Sorry about that, Tom.
Congratulations, Tom.
Yes.
So we do allow you to book it via a deposit, and then I think there's two further payment options, so you can split it into 3 payments if you like.
Awesome. Well, guys, if you do want to go off and taste the delights that Belper has to offer, and as they just said, there is a pub just up the road as well, so if you want to go, I guess you can go for a pub lunch if you want to get out of the house for a couple of hours. Nothing to stop you doing that, I suppose.
It's actually surrounded in loads of pubs and restaurants.
Okay, so you're not locked into the house for the whole weekend, are you? You can get out.
Yeah, you're right in the heart of Belper Town Centre.
And
awesome.
Yeah,
sorry, what was that, Stu?
The same Buxton's not too far away either. That's just up road, isn't it? 20 minutes.
So if you want a nice weekend away in Derbyshire, you want to investigate with my favourite Doncastrians, get on their website, go and book some of the tickets before they're all gone, and get to investigate this old chapel in Belper. Well, it's been great talking to you both. Thank you so much for joining me again tonight. Hopefully I will get to see you both soon and head on up to Ripon. And what's the name of the sweary ghost who likes to swear at people? The vagrant? Stan. Yeah. See if he swears at me as well. They do like to swear at me. They like to use the C word at me a lot for some reason when they're going to swear at me. Never anything tame. Never tame swear words. They go full on. They go straight for the throat. So we'll be getting to do that soon, and I'm sure Rosey and Stuart will be back on the show again later this year, because I can't go too long without speaking to my favourite Doncastrians. But on that note, thank you ever so much, guys. I hope you enjoy your evening, and I will speak to you soon.
Yep.
I know those aren't disembodied voices in the background. It definitely is he's 6 in 4 months, singing to himself, and the old one's waving at me right now. So on that note, thank you ever so much for being my guest tonight. Don't forget that Parasearch Radio has shows on 5 nights of the week. If you miss one, fret ye not. You can head on over to Spreaker and download it, or go over to YouTube, click like, share and subscribe, and you can get to listen to them at any time. Next week I will be talking to the owner of a place called Pengenna Manor in Cornwall. Should be very interesting. And tomorrow night's show is the PSH radio show with Sam Mason, and she'll be talking to the Horror Twins, C.L. Raven. And on that note, I'm going to bid you all a very fond farewell. Have a good evening, sleep tight, and don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.